the road again. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to invite you to listen to us while we have a little chit chat.
Yep, and apologies for the car noise again.
And our topic today is uncertainty. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
I wasn't certain then. I was like, is it uncertainty or uncertainty?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Classic.
That's so funny. Oh my god. Our topic is what is it? Yes, we wanted to talk to you guys about uncertainty. And it's something that keeps popping up in our life at the moment, and I feel like it's a theme with lots of people that we've spoken to, clients of ours. The nature of the year, it feels like a phase of uncertainty, and we thought it would be a really cool topic to chat more about and get into the human side of uncertainty, but also how our horses feel with uncertainty, and how that impacts our relationship together.
Do you want to dive in on the humans first?
Yeah, okay, let's go with the humans. So, uncertainty is a funny one because even the word creates some sort of anxiety, I feel. It's that sense of not quite knowing what's going to happen, not quite knowing where you are, and not really being sure of, what the outcome is. And we had a little bit of a chat before the podcast about, what uncertainty might mean for us. And we were thinking about the different types of uncertainty that come up. There's the uncertainty in the external world, for example. Maybe you might have moved house at one point and you're not really sure, where you're going to end up, or if you've ever been to university, once you apply to universities, not really knowing where you might go, or a school or a job. That's kind of like the external uncertainty. And there's also the internal uncertainty, which is, I think, runs a lot deeper, because you can have external uncertainty but have internal certainty, and it's the combination of the two that is often a really complicated one, because it's not only is your world changing around you, you also feel like your internal world is also changing, and that can feel really, really scary and can bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of past stuff, because we're not taught to deal with uncertainty.
No, and I was saying to Kat before we started that, again, how you're raised will also influence your choices that you make, or how much uncertainty, how much you can cope with your cup of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So my parents very, very much raised me of you don't take risks. You don't take risks.
Yeah.
Financially, you don't take risks with your job. That you have to have they very much have to have certainty of. I know they were so worried about me when I went self-employed.
Yeah.
They were like, no. What are you going to do? You've got no guarantee of your income, and you don't get any holiday, and no one's employing you. And from their perspective, what they felt was safe is to be employed by a company, because then you've got a job unless you screw it up.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's only what you believe is the certainty, because I could go and work for someone and the business goes under.
Yeah.
And okay, in their eyes, but there would be things to protect you as an employee.
Yeah.
It's only because that's what their beliefs have taught them
totally
to stay sort of safe. And it's of course human nature to go, I need to stay safe. And you'll get the extremists that live for the next adrenaline rush of taking a risk, and they live for that adrenaline rush of like, I'm going to put all my money in these stocks and shares, but I might lose it, and they'll live for that kind of adrenaline kick. Whereas other people are like, oh, there's no way I could do that, because it's not proven that I will definitely make money. I could lose my money, so therefore I won't do it. And you always get variations of how much people want to take risks, but like I thought it was quite interesting to kind of go, like, I felt really wrong for going self-employed when I first did it. I was like, I felt like I was going against my parents with what they'd taught me and raised me, but I had to follow what my gut told me to do. But
totally,
it's an interesting one.
It really is. And like, we're not, as a species, we thrive actually with uncertainty in a way, because that's what made us grow. You know, if we knew what was coming all the time, we wouldn't have developed, you know, technologies. And for any of you, we just had a diversion and we missed the exit. Whoops. Talk about uncertainty. And it's that moment when you miss an exit that you're like, is it going to have a 1 hour detour or a 10-minute one? What is it? That's how it feels to me. So we wanted to chat about what it kind of brings up, and if you're in a place of uncertainty right now, how it's really important for us to lean into those moments. And if you look back on your life, and some really scary moments might have been your best moments actually, that made you who you are today and brought you such amazing memories and breakthroughs and growth, and perhaps some of them were really challenging, and it might have not always been that simple to look back and go, oh yeah, well I had to go through this to get here, but it's really easy to forget once you're through it. You're like, oh great, well that works out. That's fine.
Don't know why I was worried.
Yeah, whereas at the time you're like, oh my god, where's the next stepping stone going to come from? This is horrendous. And we forget, and then very quickly a new situation might appear, because it's in your now, here and now. It feels like the biggest challenge you've ever been through, because it's in your here and now, and we forget that we've been through so much more, and we've made it through so many stepping stones. If you think about going back to the beginning, you'd be like, no way, like I can't even imagine not going through that or going through this, because it's made me who I am today. So that's kind of where we wanted to go with this, and just as a reminder that uncertainty is really scary, but it's also the key to immense growth.
And I think it's a good one for us to feel and experience, for the fact that our horses have so much more uncertainty than we ever do. As humans, particularly nowadays, we are able to control and influence so much of our world, and some people are more controlling than others, but like our horses have so much uncertainty. I always feel for them when like people are like, you know, I just don't get why can't they relax out hacking? And it's like, well, sure, you've decided where you're going for a hack that day. You know that you're going to go do the forest ride or the lakes ride. Your horse has no idea where you're going to go. So it's kind of fair enough if they kind of, you know, partly yes, it's a reflection of, is there enough trust in the relationship, but for the horse to trust that you're saying, we're going off on this little walk together or ride together, and that they trust to kind of come with you, but they don't know, so there's no certainty for them of knowing where you're going to take them. So I think it's really good for us to experience that feeling that we put them in all the time, whether it's going for a hack and they don't know what hack we're going to do, whether it's teaching them something new, like we might be able to picture and have an understanding of the outcome that we're trying to teach them, but in that learning experience for them, we're saying to them, can you lean in and trust me
Yeah.
with what I'm asking you to do? And I know you're not familiar with what I'm asking you to do, and you're not quite sure, so can you just be can you be brave enough and trust me enough to experiment with some ideas that I'm sharing with you? And I think we forget how much we ask of them, and yet we get so uncomfortable with it.
It's so true. I never thought of it. I've thought of it like that, but not in that kind of like I've never really embodied that, as in like you're even getting your horse in from the field. They don't know if they're gonna go on the truck to be sold, like, you know, forever gone. They don't know if they're gonna be. They literally just go, okay, I'm leaning into this. I don't know where we're gonna get to at the end, like, you know, at the end of this. Or if you put them on a trailer, they don't know where they're gonna go.
Where they're going that day, do they?
And it's like, how much do we ask of our horses to trust in that uncertainty? And yet, how much of a panic do we get in comparison when something is not quite like we planned out? Or, for example, if you've planned a ride and it's raining and you're like, but I planned this, I need to get it done, and or you know, it freezes or something like that. The panic that we have, even though it's not going to threaten our life, you know, we're not in that realm either, where we know that we're, you know, probably going to be okay, whereas a horse doesn't know that. And we were saying before we started, I had a really amazing conversation with a client the other day, and we started talking about how we can help her horse to feel safe with her, and also how she can help her horse feel seen and heard, but not necessarily running away from you know, a question or a conversation. And I said to her, how do you feel in discomfort? How do you feel you know, if you're not sure of the answer, if you have to lean into uncertainty? And immediately, you know, her body language changed, her energy changed. She was like, oh my god, I hate uncertainty. Like, I have to have my day planned out, I have to have an idea of where I'm going. And I was like, if we want to embody this and to be, you know, if you want your horse to know that you get them and you hear them, we have to practice staying in that for a moment with them, to say, okay, I'm in this uncertainty with you, and we've got this, we're okay. We don't know where this might lead, but we're okay. And I thought that was really like such an amazing thing to explore, because we don't think of it like that. We're like, right, I need you to do this for me, I need you to do this for me, I need you to do this for me, instead of being like, okay, I know I've done my practice in this too, so I can come at it from a completely different perspective with a bit more empathy, understanding, and help you through this.
And I think that ties in really nicely of what, as we show up, of, you know, we've touched about it before in previous podcasts, of kind of talking about, you know, you'll hear people say like dominant leadership versus passive leadership versus freedom-based leadership, and the kind of common theme there being leadership. And I think like horses do want somebody to have a clear idea of what looks like keeping them safe. So I really enjoyed listening to, I was listening to Claire on a podcast the other day, and for those of you that don't know her, she's like freedom-based training, and she tries to stay away from what would be classed as under kind of dominance training. So basically any time you have a head collar on your horse is a form of dominance, because you have removed choice. So hers is real freedom based, and you know, could take you 6 hours to get from the field to the stables perhaps, but that would be maybe her session for the day, whereas we cheat by putting a head collar on and bringing them in for the farrier at 12 o'clock or something. She was saying even within her freedom-based training, she still offers the horse leadership. It's just how she does it. Is she's still leading, but really gently. So it's because they like to feel safe. They like to know certainty within the herd. And where they stand, and they'll get really lost. And I said to someone the other day, they were like, "Oh, I've got a new horse coming, and I just don't really know what to do when they first arrive." And I said you need to sort of find out what they can say yes to. As kind of one of my things was like, I wouldn't just leave them to settle in as such, in the sense that I hear that all the time of just let them settle in. And that doesn't mean I'm saying go out and do shed loads with them. What I mean is, like, they need to feel safe, and they can get lost really, really quickly. If you give them 2 weeks of like, okay, whatever you need to do for the 2 weeks, they may start running you over because they're looking for safety. And they can get lost really easy. And I was like, don't ask difficult questions. Ask questions the horse can say yes to, but give them some form of like routine, understanding, so that they don't go, I've got no one here, so I'm going to have to look after myself or make up my own boundaries or try to look for boundaries. It's having boundaries that are safe and give that horse certainty in that kind of shift of the new, like going from, like they've lost everything they know. They've lost their herd mates, a yard they know, a human they know. And I was like, the first thing they're going to be looking to feel is safe. And that will include being seen and heard with any new questions that you're asking, and that new is even turning out. Like, yes, they've been turned out before perhaps, but you hope so. But it's making sure they're seen and heard, but also that they know they're safe.
Totally. And I think that's a really important point, because it's a really tricky one to approach in the horse world, because we've lost our idea of what leadership actually means to the horse. We know what it we know what we might like define as leadership, but that might not be. There's a million different ways to interpret that word, and each is individual to each person and each horse. And we think of leadership as one thing, and it's not. It's like it's 1,000 different colours and shades, and it's people. I know I've always felt lost with that, and it's actually sometimes made me go, I know I don't want to do it this way, so I'll just not do it at all. And then you get even more lost, because it's like, if you're with a child and you're like, whatever you want to do, go for it, and then they wander, then they're like, actually, within a secure attachment, you need limits, you need boundaries to help that child feel safe, and to know that they can have agency within that relationship. You're not taking away their choice or their ability to learn and do stuff. Like, a kid will want to tie his own shoes when they feel successful, and they're like, that was really amazing. But equally, you don't want to be like, right, I'm just going to shove all of this on and give you no choice whatsoever, or just say, do whatever you want, eat whatever you want, sit in front of the TV, you don't have to go to school, like, blah, 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 blah. And then that child is like, oh, but now I don't feel safe.
And then the owner's like wondering why, or the owner or parents wondering why, when they then do ask something, the kid or the horse is like, no. And then on the same side of the coin is they will try and find a boundary. They will try and find a boundary. Like they will often push or in their own way or run in their own way until you go, okay, no, this is the line that we can hold you within to help you feel safe. It's like the side of the same coin, I think. And it's a really hard one to play, but it's really important
to try. So leaning into uncertainty is a muscle, and it's something that you need to develop over time. And it's like Tracey said before, it's not chucking yourself off a cliff every 5 minutes. It is, you know, leaning into it in small ways. For example, like, can you be present while the kettle boils? That's discomfort.
Yeah.
That's uncertainty. You're like, what do I do? Do I like fiddle around with stuff? Do I tidy the kitchen? Do I make myself busy with something? That's really important to build up that little bit of a muscle. And then when you are in a position where your horse is like, okay, I'm not sure what we're doing or where we're going, you can go, okay, we're leaning in.
I think for I see it in like the horse ownership of, say I've sort of seen or felt that something's going on with a horse on a physical level. I'm sure loads of you guys listening can relate if you've been in sort of similar journeys where when someone or you first notice your horse isn't quite right, you freak out, you think the worst, you Google a bunch, which is always deadly, and there's usually a period of when you first acknowledge something, unless it's like an obvious emergency.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, if it's not an emergency, there's usually a period of you sit in this horrible pit in your stomach of imagining all the possible scenarios, all the worst scenarios, all the what ifs before people will call like the physio or the vet, and you feel absolutely awful. I truly believe, like someone once said to me, you are only as happy as your happiest child, and I think that's really relatable for horse ownership. Like for most people I teach, their horses are their worlds, and that, you know, that's people that have families outside of that or don't. Their horses are their absolute world, and when they know their horse isn't quite right, sitting in that period of time before you get an answer from like the specialist, I think can be the most horrible uncertainty ever. And sometimes, you know, you like if it's a lameness workup, the vet's like, yeah, I can't do it immediately, and you might have to wait a few days or a couple of weeks, particularly if they've got to go off for an MRI or something like that. You might have to wait for that appointment. And it's that unknowing, it's not knowing what's wrong. And then I see this shift, and I felt it myself, of like you get some diagnostics, and because you can make a plan, you feel so much better. And it does come back to, it's because it comes back in our control.
Yeah, totally.
It's that horrible sick feeling of when you've got that unknowing, the uncertainty of what does this mean, what does this look like, am I going to have to cancel all my plans that I've made with my horse and things like that. And it can be really, really tough to ride it out, but I always find each time you do, a little part of you kind of goes, okay, like you might have done it before with a previous horse or with your horse before, and you start to kind of go, okay, we've got this. I know that I'm going to do everything possible to help my horse, but there's that initial, when that uncertainty is at its like deepest, darkest, that's really, really tough.
Totally. And it's like, that's why we Google all our symptoms, because we're like, it's easier for me for Google to say I might die than to wait 2 weeks for a doctor's appointment. And it's like, the reason why uncertainty makes you grow so much is because it literally squeezes you. It's like you have to hold your breath slightly, and your nervous system gets squeezed, and all of these limiting beliefs, all of this, you know, we self-sabotage, we go into just panic, we go into grief, we go into like just turmoil because we are making up scenarios in our head, we are creating the future, because not knowing the future is way more painful than the worst case scenario. Do you know what I mean?
It really challenges you to be present and just to be in the moment. It's probably one of the most, like, one of the biggest things, I think, whether it's like that uncertainty of can you pay your mortgage at the end of the month, or what's your diagnosis going to be for your horse or your own health or something, and you're not present when you're living in uncertainty. You are not in the moment.
Totally. And I mean, you know that I'm in it right now, and but it's nice because I can remind myself that I'm growing, and like that has not, if I would have been in this situation, you know, like I'm moving and so many things are kind of up in the air, and yet it's like every day you're like, okay, I'm just going to lean in a little bit more today, I'm just going to lean in a little bit more today, and I'm so grateful to myself that I can do that now. Whereas if I would have hit this a few years ago, it would have been a disaster. Like, I would have gone to Mars and back thinking of all the different situations. I would be driving myself crazy. And I remember when I moved to Africa for a year, I had no idea who was going to pick me up at the airport. I had no idea what was going to happen, whether I was going to enjoy it, whether I was going to hate it. But I just had to like just lean in and be like, okay, it's faith in yourself to pull yourself through, and faith in the journey, in the process. And it's like you have to ask yourself that question of like, okay, have we got this? And you have to be like, yeah, I can't see what's at the end of the tunnel, but I trust that we're going to get through it. So, and I think it's that internal sense of uncertainty that we can work with. You can never control the world around you. You can never control, you know, what's going to happen, what's going to pop up. Like, you know, the world can change in an instant, and if you are always waiting for the world to be safe, you will never ever, you know, you'll be waiting forever.
And your world will get smaller.
Exactly.
And smaller.
Your world will get smaller, and
and it's like, I think it's a really uncomfortable thing to say to someone when they are in it to actually say, trust the process. Trust the process, or you have a choice of how you feel. I think there's so much truth with you have a choice about how you feel, but equally I think if someone felt like punching you, if you said that to someone when they're in it, I'd kind of go, do you know what? Fair enough, because normally when they're in it, they just need love. They're not looking for necessarily solutions. They probably just want love and support, and solutions might be part of that. But I think like it has to come from within yourself to go, okay, this really sucks right now. But for me personally, like, say something's up with one of my horses, I go into, I want to do every single thing possible to help. And that's my way of trying to keep myself like on the upside of kind of the sort of dark uncertainty, rather than going to that's it, the world's over, and kind of the sort of lower side of it is like, we all have our kind of coping strategies, but you have to be ready to take that responsibility. And if someone else tells you to take it, it's fair enough if you kind of go, really? You might thank them at a later date, but at the time you'll be like, I wasn't ready to hear that. So
it must come from within.
It has to come from within, but it's knowing, like, actually, how can I show up to this in the best version possible? And sometimes that may mean having a day where you go, I'm just going to honour myself today to go, this is shit. Lean into the shitness so that the following day you can go, okay, now what am I going to do?
Totally. I think that's really important, and not to gaslight yourself either, and not, none of this false kind of like, there's the false positivity, which is like, everything's fine, and just tell yourself you're fine, and you're like, no, you can be at the shit end of the stick and be like, I'm not okay right now, but I'm like, you said to me before, where it's like, I'm not okay, but I'm just putting one foot in front of the other, and that's all I can do, and that is enough. So,
and there is no light without dark.
yes,
and there's certainly a lot of darkness in the world and the earth right now, and without it there is no balance of. You would not appreciate the light if there was nothing to kind of show you that actually you need those kind of to see your own growth, to see how far you've come, to feel and live gratefulness. Is you have to have that balance, and know that there's always greater from it, even when you're in it, and it feels like there can't be. 100%.
And when you get to that other side of the stepping stones and you look at how far you've come and you go, oh, okay, and then you stay there for a little bit and you're like, lovely, and then you're like, okay, ready for the next stepping